Representative Budzinski, you are recognized for 7 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Bost, and thank you, Ranking Member Takano, and thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being here today. I appreciate your time. I do want to take a minute to just address the claims that you've made about the VA's performance has gotten worse from the previous administration. By many measures, and I want to highlight the great work of the VEO, the Veterans Experience Office within the VA, that has been measuring specifically veteran trust scores. They've come up with a veteran trust score, which is at an all-time high at 80.4% in 2024, which was an increase of 25% since 2016 when we first started recording this metric. VA employees, many of them veterans, as you know, have been stepping up to meet the demands. You referenced the PACT Act, which was a historic expansion of care. But now with more staffing cuts on the horizon, these public servants are being asked to do more with less, is my concern. Almost 4 in 5 VA employees are members of unions, and collective bargaining rights give them a process to address their concerns in the workplace and ensure sound working conditions. I believe this helps both the employee and the veteran being served. Mr. Secretary, when you endorse President Trump's executive order stripping VA employees of their labor rights, I believe you devalue their work. And coupled with the threat of significant staff downsizing, I hear from constituents working at the VA in my district that they have increased fear and stress, and there are deep morale issues at the workplace where they deeply believe in the mission of serving our nation's heroes. Of course, we agree that improvements can and should be made at the VA, and I want to say that despite testimony, none of us on this committee believe that the VA is perfect. But improvements and changes, I really do believe, need to be done in a manner that is thoughtful, legal, and based on the input of stakeholders, which includes us in Congress. And so I'm going to shift gears and talk about one area that you have touched on, and I'm really honored to be the ranking member on the Tech Modernization Subcommittee with our chairman, Mr. Barrett. And so I want to spend a little time talking about the EHRM as well, which I think is one area that we can all agree is a place that could use improvement. Your remarks mention an accelerated rollout of this system, and I too really do want to see EHRM be successful, and can acknowledge that there have definitely been stalls and not a lot of success seen to date. But I think it's worth taking a minute to say, you know, talk about the program and where it started and then where it is today. So this program actually was started during the first Trump administration in 2017. The VA signed a $10 billion sole source, no bid contract with Cerner, which some have said, the GAO has mentioned that, you know, influenced by so-called Mar-a-Lago crowd. As Cerner struggled with the implementation, then Oracle acquired them in 2022. So as you know, there's a total of 170 VA sites that need to implement the new EHR system. Since 2020, VA has rolled out, and I think we can acknowledge, only 6 sites, which is that's not great. Now VA has announced plans to roll out EHRM at 13 sites by 2026, which is progress. But my concern is that that leaves about 151 sites left. And so if we're accelerating that to by 2031, how are we going to get there? This is going to be a major undertaking, and I'm just very concerned with the staffing levels in particular. If we're not fully staffed, how we're going to meet this metric. And so in the midst of what I think is a massive reduction in force and then a bare bones IT budget, I'm really worried that this is going to set up the VA for failure. I completely agree with you. You mentioned standardization. That is something we've talked about on our subcommittee and something we should be moving to. But some of the unique challenges, as you know, is that every VA has their own unique system, and trying to get all of them to standardize is a challenge. But I agree with you, that's something we should be committed to looking to. So one of my first questions for you, Secretary Collins, is to better understand how workforce cuts will help you achieve that. What is your target reduction for OIT workforce?
At this point in time, there's no quota or anything else looking for OIT or any other workforce. It's looking at total picture of who we have where, and we're going through that process right now.
So have there been cuts to the OIT workforce? You're
Not at this
saying-
time, no. No,
and-
there's been no. We let less than 1/2% of employees that were here in January that have let go at the VA.
Okay, so there's no plan in the future to reduce the OIT workforce?
I think when you overlook it, are there areas of the OIT workforce that may or may not be essential to what is happening? I'm not going to say there's not, but I'm also going to say that it's essential to us going forward as we look forward in this.
Okay, because I just
I mean,
think
I'm just
that's
not, I mean,
critical.
I understand what you're trying to say.
Yeah,
I don't mean to be evasive in this, but I just, I'm
Yeah.
not going to go that granular.
Yeah, I understand. And I think I hear what you're saying about the medical staff of the VA, but I think the OIT is a great example of those aren't medical staff, but they're really critical to being mission-driven and to getting a program like the EHRM system really successfully off the ground. These aren't doctors or nurses, these are technicians, these are tech folks, and that's why I'm asking.
No, and it's a great question because, you've actually opened it up a little bit because also neither are people who clean our rooms and neither are the plumbers and neither are electricians, which we've
we need
protected.
them.
We protected them as well, so
Yeah,
they're part of that
we need them.
300,000.
Okay. So I guess during your testimony last week before my Senate colleagues, you indicated that technologies would help VA to improve efficiencies in the face of workforce cuts. But it sounds like, and one of my concerns is that we might be using technology to replace people, which is a concern of mine, because I think, quite frankly, the VA is not, we don't want to be installing McDonald's kiosks here. These are actual people we want serving our veterans person to person. And so I just want to make sure, can you respond to that and how technology is potentially going to be used?
I think technology is working how we're taking first-time claims and a lot of this is in our BA, our benefit side. We can actually take things that we've seen over and over and over again that we can get a benefit that could take several months under a system. We're actually getting new claim benefits done within literally days, so that they're not waiting for these things. So I think you use them in ways that it helps. You don't use it, technology is not going to solve every issue that you ever have, but it can get us more efficiently, especially in ways that are more not hands-off, but they're more the transactional with our, like, mortgage benefits, the education benefits, things like that could work in that way.
Okay, would love to keep talking. I have time for maybe one more quick question. I did want to ask the VA Chief Information Officer, the OIT, that position I don't think has been filled, if you could respond to when you think that position will be filled.
We're working on that as we speak. I mean, we're still interviewing some folks. It's hard to fill some positions, and we're still working to get that filled.
Okay, thank you. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.